Derneğimiz hem kurumsal, hem bireysel, hem akademiden, kamudan, farklı sektörlerden birçok üyeyi içinde barındırıyor. Şu anda 100'den fazla üyesi olan bir dernek. Bu çerçevede siz de bu kültürel, eğitimsel gelişim sürecinin bir parçası olmak, bu ortak akıl ağının, bu köprü derneğin bir parçası olmak isterseniz derneğimize seve seve bekleriz efendim. İkinci konuşmayı TMA'nın bahsettiğimiz uluslararası organizasyonun Avrupa Başkanı olan Bouille'yi davet ediyorum.
Hello everybody, I think you can hear me. Excellent. Thank you very much for welcoming me. I'm Greg. Actually, last name you can forget, but it's very difficult to pronounce. I'm Swiss. I just second time I'm here in Istanbul, such a nice city. I'm here actually I have two hats today. I'm here to talk to you a bit about TMA. I will be the incoming president for next 2 years at European level. And also I have another hat, which is more investment bank. Before I've been an entrepreneur. We had a family business in the watch industry, so typical Swiss. And I sold it to a private equity fund. Then managed also to be a turnaround consultant for many years, very operational. And now I'm still in the turnaround space, but more on the financing side. So that's going to be my second hat. And I'm going to talk to you about how to finance or refinance companies in a different way and also be creative on this. Okay, well, let me see. So this is the first part about TMA and TMA Europe. So there are, I think, one fourth of the people here who are TMA, some others don't. So just to let you know a bit about TMA. It's a big organization, international, based in Chicago with 54 chapters and 14 in Europe. But in Europe, we are actually very, very much growing. And you have also a lot of people who are from different sectors, practitioners, but also consultant bankers and so on. International is more than half of the members we have in TMA. So that's actually a big component, and that's also actually the value of this organization. As you see, basically TMA brings the opportunity for everybody to raise their personal brand, to be part of a big international association, but also to get some contacts and experts from all over the world and also locally. And that's also the value of having the chapter here in Turkey, which is also very, very dynamic, I have to say. I've seen a lot of times Özgür and Under in different TMA events internationally. So thank you also for their participation and showing that this chapter is very active. As you see, there are many different chapters. Of course, a lot in the States, but also internationally. And there are some also coming in the big tent. The next one is going to be Slovakia. We have two main, within the actually associations, we have two main networks. One is for NextGen, so we try to integrate also younger associates or people who are getting into this industry, into this sector, in order for them to be a bit more aware about what's going on in the sector, but also get some capabilities and skills. And we have another one, which is TMA Now, which stands for Network of Women, because in finance, very often you don't see, and especially in turnaround, you don't see a lot of women, and we'd like to raise the bar to a next level also for them. We have several events all over Europe, and I would say general European convention. The last one was in Paris, we had one in London, and the next one is going to be next year in Milan. Very often we have more than 20, I would say maybe 30 different nationalities. And that's where actually you start to build up your network very much internationally. So I recommend anybody to participate. We have also TMA Live, which is more either webinars or live events in person. We had 2 main events last year. One was about the luxury and retail sector, which is suffering, as you know, and also the automotive, which is also here actually a very good or very big sector. And we had the chance to actually discuss about the evolution of this sector and the different difficulties companies are facing. We have also a summit in the Eastern countries, and very often this summit is in association with SFNet, which is also another association very much in the turnaround space and helping also to raise some creative and alternative financing solutions. Finally, we have also some teaching or learning, and also we did accreditations within our association with EACTP. It stands for Corporate Turnaround Professionals or Associates. And that's actually a recognized paper, which is actually very, very important in the States, but also here in Europe. Being part of TMA is very much being part of a global association and also being part of a network. And the power of actually TMA is very much within the people. We'd like to make and to bring membership value, and that's very much what we are doing at international level. At European levels, that's going to be my mission for next 2 years, and also here in Turkey with the president and all the members. So that was actually basically for TMA. Now I'm talking more about the second part, which is actually my perception as a new investment bankers, because that's not my background. But I've joined actually Chiron Financial, which is a US-based investment bank boutique, and I'm responsible for Europe. And here I've taken an example, just actually, maybe you don't see or you don't see it very well, but it's just to give you an example about the different type of solutions that can strengthen the balance sheet or actually help companies to survive. I've taken actually an example about a Swiss case, which is dummy, but I didn't want to put any Turkish because I don't know anything about, the environment here. But basically, it's a company, very often at the top, you have a private equity fund that has financed the company, and the company is in trouble. You see actually declining cash flows and having actually huge liability. The debt on EBITDA ratio is going to the roof, and that's very much what very often happens. At that stage, you see some companies having troubles to get refinance or actually to manage their activities. Basically because of private equity, and that's new. For most of the people who know the private equity sector, the peak was in 21, and now we are more or less 6-7 years after. The LPs want their money back, and in 21, when it was the peak, everybody was buying companies at very high multiples. So most of the private equity sector is suffering, and there are very few people now in the private equity sector willing to invest in companies and getting equities. That's a big change in the industry. They'd like to lend money. They don't want to take equities anymore. They want to be lenders. And that's actually what we see. So here, this company is suffering. And you have also very often the case that the company is getting actually more and more difficulties with the banks, the lenders. So as you see, and you know that, very often you have several ways of financing a company. You can be self-financing, but you have also external funds. And within the external funds, in the third parties, very often you have banks. But what I'm circling in red here, that you have also some other people and other funds possibilities, very much from the private credit or private capital. And that's what in my company we are doing. We are giving an alternative to banks, to companies in the turnaround space. Of course, you can bring equity, and that's very much what people like. But as I said, private equity more and more are refraining in bringing equity. So very often shareholders have given already most of their assets or their fortune, and they cannot anymore. So that's the reason you need to bring additional tools. And very much what I see more and more coming from the States, and that's the reason Chiron is really good because we bring actually some used tools into Europe from the States. You know, in finance, in States, it's very fragmented and very also sophisticated in States. And here in Europe, there are some tools that we don't use so far. So we talk about structured capital, structured equity, peak interests, and I will come back to this. We can also, of course, as a turnaround managers, renegotiate the debt, subordination of debt, or even sometimes amend to extend, which is actually very much what the banks like, loan to own, and sometimes also you can actually have some other alternatives. But very often it brings to liability management exercises, so tensions with the creditors. And what we see more and more in Europe is that you have now some cross-class cram-downs in several jurisdictions, talking about UK, talking about Netherlands, talking about France, talking about Germany. So this is actually bringing creditor on creditor violence. You have one creditor class that can actually force the other creditors to adopt a plan. And that's actually the thing we see on the debt side more and more. Of course, you can have, and that's the last point, that's what we are actually bringing and putting into place, off-balance sheet solutions. I'll give you an example which is coming from the automotive sector. 2 years ago, we have been asked by a supplier in Italy to help them getting an order from an OEM in Germany. Not to name it, it was Mercedes. And this supplier wanted to get an order of 210 million. But now OEMs ask any supplier, top supplier, to put actually 30% on escrow, so 70 million. This company was making 150 million revenues and 120 million of debt. So no banks wanted to guarantee 70 million on an escrow account for 3 years. What we managed to do, and that's coming from off-balance sheet solutions, creativity, we ask actually a syndication of insurances to make a 70 million bank guarantee, or if you want, surety bond, same. And that was given to the OEM. And the company, as soon as they got the order, could pay actually through monthly fees or monthly payments, actually the insurance, like you do for your health insurance, for example. So it was touching the P&L and not the balance sheet. So everybody, all the creditors were very happy, and the company could get actually the order. And that's very much what's coming from these alternative financing solutions we can provide and put in place. And that's also the creativity you can get from TMA and the TMA members. Talking about structured equity and peak, I'm sure you know most of it, but for the people who are not so sophisticated, I'm just explaining. Structured equity is like a stretched debt. And you have multi-tranche, so you can have a conservative or standard bank helping, but you can also have some private lenders coming into it. Private lenders will ask for a higher interest rate, but on the other hand, they will be more flexible. And this is a kind of debt you can ask or you can add to your balance sheet. Peak interest actually is something which is even more flexible, and that's more and more what we are putting in place in Europe. You can actually pay as a bullet, so meaning you pay very much at the end. People lend you money and you pay at the end. Or you can, but you have to securitize sometimes the principal, and there are some principal protections. I'm talking about insurances here. You can also bring some structured equity, meaning you can bring some kickbacks. You can have a put option for the lenders after 2 or 3 years so they can get the money back. So this is something which is very creative. And that's where alternative financing solution from the private sector is actually putting in place. And that's actually the trend we see more and more in our space in the turnaround industry. That's also what we implement, I would say now on a daily basis. So that was actually basically my speech about TMA as well as creative alternative financing solutions in refinancing, restructuring. I'm available. I will be here the whole day. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be surrounded by a lot of people and more happy than to answer any questions. So thank you very much and hope to see you soon in some other TMA events for sure.